Welcome, everybody. I'm Amanda Head. Welcome to this edition of Small Business Saturday within the Furthermore with Amanda Head podcast ecosystem. I am so happy that you are here with me. My guest today is someone who she's not really anchored to one location. She pretty much goes all up and down the Eastern Seaboard. If you watch my TV show that I co-host with John Solomon, Just the News, No Noise, you have seen her work product. So I am excited to introduce you to her. She is the founder and the owner and the photographer at Hailey Rae Photography, and she has some beautiful work. You all need to go and check out her website and look at her portfolio, but we're going to talk to her in just a few moments about her business, the things that she endures as a small business owner, how she gets her business out there and gets publicity for it via word of mouth and social media and creative little things like that. So we're going to talk to her in just a moment. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back, everybody, to this Small Business Saturday edition on the Furthermore podcast. I've been getting a lot of feedback on these episodes for Saturdays, and it's been actually really good. And I think that there are so many people out there who are thirsting to support small businesses. And obviously, since COVID, and we saw so many large corporations and large conglomerates really pushing some of the COVID measures and just becoming kind of tyrannical corporations, that there is a thirst out there to support small businesses. So I am delighted to bring in my next guest. She is the founder, the president, the photographer of Hailey Rae Photography, Hailey Barao. Did I get that right?
Yes,
Awesome.
you did.
Hailey, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
I'm excited to have you on. And for my audience, a little bit of background. I've known Hailey for a few years now. I met her through my producer. She was kind enough to truck it to the swamp to take some pictures for me and John when we were launching the TV show, my TV show with John Solomon. We had to do, publicity shots, as you oftentimes have to do when you're launching a project like this. And Hailey took some just absolutely phenomenal pictures that if you watch the TV show, you have seen some of her work in our intro to the TV show. So Hailey, even if people don't realize it, they're familiar with your work. So thanks so much for being here, and give everybody just kind of an idea of your background, because you're very young, but you have this successful, I think, as you call it, more than a side hustle of doing photography, but you also, do other things. So give everybody just a bit of your background.
Yeah, a little bit of a forewarning. I have been in the process of moving down to North Carolina and relocating. So I'm currently sitting in my niece's nursery right now. So if there's chaos in the background, that's why. There's so much chaos going on in this house right now. But
It happens during a move.
oh my goodness, all the time. And it's me, I'm moving and my family's moving. My parents are moving down here as well. So there's 8 of us in this house, and
Oh my
it's been
goodness.
quite the journey. So, but
Yes.
anyways, so a little bit about me is I started my photography business. I didn't intentionally plan to start it. It was my junior year of college, and I was down in West Virginia, and I had just friends on the college. They were asking me, hey, can you take photos? And I wanted to grow in my photography as well. So they were kind of my guinea pigs, and it just kind of grew overnight. I wasn't expecting it at all. I just definitely have had such a great support behind me, and I really don't think I'd be where I am today without the community support as well. And just connections, even like what you were saying with your producer. I mean, if I hadn't met him, I wouldn't have met you. So I really just believe that just connections are really how you can get a business to grow.
Yeah, and that's kind of, that's a throwback mentality to how businesses used to be run. I mean, 100 years ago, before the internet, before people had telephones on every wall of each home, or on a wall of every home, I should say. That was how business it was all word of mouth. Everybody went down to the town center, to the town square, Main Street, America, and you had your barber shop and your breakfast cafe or whatever, your newsstand. And these businesses, everybody just kind of, it was very symbiotic, and it was word of mouth. And you had one person who was a customer and they really appreciated your work, and then they pass it along and along and along. And I love that you have kind of built this community around your work, where people do that. What was your first camera?
What was my first one?
Your
Sorry.
first camera?
My first camera, it was actually my dad's. It was a Canon Rebel, and it was a good one at the time when I first started. I think I was around 18 or 19 when he got it, and so I would just play around with it at the house, and it just grew from there. And then my first, I guess, real camera that I ever purchased was the Nikon. It was a D750, and it was a really good one for that time. It still is a really good camera,
Yeah.
and so that's what I had brought to college, and I was just playing around with it and playing around with the settings. I also had so much support in the sense that I had a lot of people I knew back home that also were photographers, and I just reached out and I said, I want to learn. What can I do? Can I hold your camera equipment? Can I just come along and kind of observe? So I really had to put myself out there when I got back home from college to see, how can I move this to Maryland and how can I make this grow? I still vividly remember sitting in my bedroom and I was so nervous to make the jump. I just thought, why would anyone want me to take why would anyone have me take their photos? And I remember my sister was sitting with me and she was like, just try it. I mean, you're never gonna do anything if you don't try it. So I remember just making that Facebook page and being so excited about it and just watching it grow today. It still feels like a dream to me and it is such a humbling experience and such an honor every time I have somebody book me just for to capture their lives.
I love what the trajectory of your training has been because when I was in college, I was a music major most of my college career until I changed my major to business. But I had a lot of friends who were in the RTVF department, the radio, television, and film department. And a lot of them, they had photography classes and things like that. But it always seemed to me like the best way to learn, especially something like photography, is just it's on hand, hands-on, on set for people out here in Los Angeles, but it's just getting in there and actually doing it and learning ways to manipulate lenses and angles and lighting and things like that. And that's not really taught in the classroom.
No, no, it definitely is hands-on. And it was really cool because there's so many different ways that you can photograph, and everyone has their own opinion about how a photograph should look and how you should
Yeah.
capture it. So it's been really neat kind of watching and seeing other people's journeys along the way of how when I was first taught by my one mentor, she was very by the books. And everything needs to be straight, everything needs to be there wasn't much art to it. It was very kind of subjective, if that makes sense. Just
Yes.
you need to do it this way and this is the way that you do it and your lighting needs to look like this and then just watching the different trends and styles throughout my journey with photography as well. I've definitely seen the dark and moody come back in, and then the light and airy has been coming in as well, and the film. So there's just so many ways to take a picture and there's so many opinions on it, so you just kind of have to figure out what is your style, what does that look like, and how are you going to cater that to others.
Do you have a particular type of scenery or subject that you like to shoot? I mean, I know, there are people who like Ansel Adams, for example, his specialty is black and white of landscape and nature and things like that. Do you prefer to shoot inanimate objects or people?
I would say most of my experience is I started with animals and I started in animate because that's what I had at the time, but I really have grown into the wedding industry. I photographed over 100 weddings at this point. So I would say that's more my specialty at this point is just
Yeah.
families and weddings and maternity, everything like that. But I would say weddings are really fun because they're dynamic in the sense that there are times where you do pose the couple and you're working really hands-on with them, but then there's other moments where the speeches or during the ceremony, you get to kind of step back and you get to just photograph the whole scene and figure out how can I capture this and how can I have it in a way that when they look back on these photos, they'll remember and think like that's exactly what I felt in that moment.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I want to step away from the professional talk for a moment and ask you, since you photographed over 100 weddings, what is like the worst bridezilla scenario you ever had to deal with?
I would say as a woman, dealing with groomsmen that are really drunk, I've had I just I don't know. It's just it's that and sparklers. I still don't understand why we hand drunk people sparklers at the end of the night when they've been drinking and they're saying line up and the bride and groom are going to go through this and everyone's holding fire and you're supposed to stand there and take photos and no one's looking and no one's paying attention to these sparks. That one gets me every time. I'm just like, why are we doing this? Who thought this was
Yeah,
a good idea? But I would say mainly just the parties where they get kind of crazy and especially I mean just as a girl like I mean sometimes when you photograph the groomsmen and when I'm a second shooter as well I'm primarily with the groomsmen and so I have a lot of just moments with them where they're just being men I guess I don't know being guys
yeah.
um I Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I would say to that.
Yeah, and I just envision I agree with you. It's kind of idiotic because number one, sparklers, the sparks that they spray off can put holes in clothing. And when everyone is dressed up wearing nice wedding attire, including the bride and groom, the bride wearing a wedding dress that she probably paid at least hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for, and the groom who is either rented a tux or bought a tux, either scenario was not great to put holes in it. But also, I mean, just thinking of my own wedding at the end of the night after everyone has been dancing and eating and drinking and doing whatever for 4 hours, a lot of times high heels come off. And I know from experience, you step on a sparkler and the heat for I don't know what makes it so thermodynamic. It's obviously the chemicals, probably the sulfur, but it stays so hot for so long. So you imagine wedding guests, especially females, without their high heels on, stepping on sparklers, and I'm right there with you. I think that that's probably not the best idea for a wedding. We're going to take a very quick commercial break, and we're going to be back in just a moment with Hailey of Hailey Rae Photography. Welcome back, everybody. We are here with Hailey of Hailey Rae Photography. And Hailey, I love your story. As I was mentioning a moment ago, I love the hands-on experience that you have. And you were talking about one of your mentors, someone who is very straightforward with photography. And I think that there probably are age-old test of time principles with respect to photography that hold firm with respect to angles. And when one of the things I happen to know, just because of living in a city like Los Angeles where everybody has a headshot, that if you shoot close to someone's face, it's going to accentuate and widen features. So the best thing is to step back and then zoom in, and that tends to slim features. So I know that there are age-old principles like that with respect to photography, but what you were saying about photography being so subjective, I think that's true. I mean, photography is the perfect example of beauty being in the eye of the beholder. Have you ever had situations with clients where you differed on what you thought was beautiful?
I would say starting out where I wasn't firm with boundaries, I definitely experienced that with my first weddings. I was still trying to get a handle on what a wedding day looked like, what it entailed. So there were moments where I didn't feel like it was a good. I always look at light. Light is the very first thing I look for when I take a photo because I know that
Yeah,
if you're not going to have good light, the rest of the photos really, it doesn't really matter. It always starts with light.
absolutely. Yep.
But a lot of people, they want the background. And so if they see something, they're thinking, oh, this is I got this place because this is the background that I wanted. But if the sun's not in the right location at that time, it can kind of make it a little bit of a challenge. So just kind of educating. I think as I've gone down and through the years, this is my eighth wedding season. So I've definitely got more of a handle on a way to strategize that and where I'll take the photo that they want and then I'll take the photo the way that I want it and I kind of compare it with them through the camera and say this is how you wanted it, but if we set it up this way it's going to look a lot better and it's going to be more kind of what you were thinking.
Yeah.
In terms of editing style, I feel like for the most part, when people hire me, they tend to look at my website and they look at my portfolio, so they kind of have an idea going in. And with weddings, I always offer an engagement session with their wedding as well, just to get a chance to get to know them and see my style. So that has helped a lot too. So they kind of have going into the wedding what to expect and how the process goes.
Yeah, how important is it? Because you talked about getting to know the bride and groom. I think that a lot of people imagine that for wedding photographers, you have just like your set portfolio of pictures. You get all of the different familial combinations. The bride with the groom's family, the groom with the bride's family, the big family, the cousins, the siblings, all of these different combinations. But I would imagine that for you, someone who actually cares about the personalities of the bride and the groom, that plays into the types of pictures that you take. Is that something, the uniqueness of a bride and groom's personality, how much of an impact does that have on the photography that you take that day?
Oh, it's huge. I think a lot of people, they'll initially come to me and say, I want candids, I want this. And I have to kind of tell them that's on you. I mean, if you're going to
Yeah.
bring that and if you're going to be in the moment and you're going to be with your partner and you're going to be laughing or you're going to show that kind of emotion, I can capture that. But
Yeah.
if you are so worried about that, you get really stiff and you get
Yes.
worried about how you look in the camera, you're not going to get the photos that you want. And so I just try to get their minds off the camera. I don't even like them to think about me being in the moment as well. I try to get them on them, especially with men. I feel like men have a harder time on the camera than women. So kind of getting them comfortable, relaxed, having them look at their partner and focus on their partner, and then you can start to get those pictures as well. And then I think that's ultimately what they love the most is they look back in that and said, oh, that was a genuine laugh, or that was a genuine
Yeah.
smile. People know when they are genuine or not.
Yeah, I think back to mine and my husband's wedding pictures. And obviously we have all the pictures at the front of the church with all of the family and everybody's smiling and everybody's posed and all of that. And it's really nice. But some of my favorite pictures from our wedding were during our first look. That first time that my husband got to see me in my wedding dress, and I'm getting all weepy about it. The first conversation that we had as we were there at the front of the church together, and it was just me and him in the sanctuary, or just he and I in the sanctuary, along with the photographer. And those candid moments, I think, you're exactly right. When the opportunity presents itself, when the bride and the groom are enjoying themselves and they're not necessarily so militant and uh, focused and stiff on getting the right pictures, I think that's when a lot of that magic happens. Do you prefer, because I know that there are a lot of photographers out there who, natural light is wonderful, and especially if it's naturally filtered. If it's an overcast day, naturally filtered light by the clouds is just spectacular. But I also know there are a lot of photographers out there who actually prefer a studio environment with artificial light. Do you have one or the other that you prefer?
I prefer natural. I just like the way it looks. I think a lot of people like how their skin tones turn out a little bit better. It's a little bit
Yeah.
trickier with flash sometimes. But you're not gonna have that perfect environment every time, so you have to learn to get used to flash as well. But if it was up to me, I would always be doing natural light.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever
How did
do studio environments?
I've done a couple. I've rented out a couple. I did a bridal session in a studio environment. I got to play around with the light. I tried to do more of the natural for that one as well.
Yeah.
And then I did it for Christmas minis. So I've had some experience with the studio. I think it's really pretty and I think it has definitely a time and place. I think both do. I really think it's down to people's preferences and what they want it to look like.
Awesome.
I was going
Awesome.
to ask you though, did you do a first look at your wedding?
We did. Yes, we did a first look for a couple different reasons. Um, it made sense for us because of the way that the church was set up. First of all, the wedding was at 7 o'clock at night, and we were using, with the exception of a little bit of dimly lit chandeliers, it was primarily candle lit. So without using a flash or without using an insane f-stop, an insane what's the other term for f-stop?
ISO.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
without, having to draw in as much natural light as we could from the room, which obviously, as you know, creates a lot of noise in the photo. There really wasn't any way around it. So we did a first look, and we also, I think that there's something really, really special about the first time the groom seeing the bride when it's just the two of them. And I will say, at first, when the photographer first suggested it, I was averse to it because I'm a traditionalist and I wanted it to be, I wanted the first time for him to see me to be like the Hallmark movies when I'm walking down the aisle and the organ's playing. But then when the photographer laid it out to me, and this was another thing too, this was actually, I totally forgot about this. This was the main contributor to the decision, is that, like I said, the wedding was at 7 o'clock at night. And if
Mhm.
we had not done a first look, then we would have had to have done all of the wedding photography with our family members and stuff after the wedding,
Mhm.
in between the wedding and the reception. So since we did a first look, my husband had already seen me, so we were able to gather all of the family before the ceremony and get all of those pictures, so that as soon as the ceremony was over, we could go straight to the getaway car and get to the reception. Because for a 7 o'clock wedding, it just didn't make sense for us. And I'm so glad I did that, because I had some cufflinks for my husband that I gave him as a wedding gift. And we wanted to just have that special moment. And again, it was just the two of us and the photographer. And the photographer, as I'm sure you do, you do your best to kind of just stay in the background and to not really like take part in the event, just photographing it and making sure that it's retained for posterity. So that was why we ended up doing that. But I want to give you some props because your photography business does very well. You've been featured in Badgley, Mishka's bridal shop. You've been seen on weddingvibe.com, weddingventure.com. You won an expertise award for best wedding photographers in Colombia. You also did a feature for voyagebaltimore.com. You're all over the place, girl. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so I know you have described your editing style as creamy whites, bright colors, inspired by filmy romantic looks. Can you expound on that a little bit?
I definitely like the film style. Any of those old film cameras, I love the pictures from those. So I try to make mine emulate a lot like that final look. I really like the greens where they're a little bit more of the greenish blue kind of
Oh
tint,
yeah,
if
yeah,
that
yeah. Yeah.
I really like that. And I do like the bright. I do prefer more of just the light, but I also like the contrast. So I try to do a good job of making sure there's a good blend. So that way it's not completely washed out, but it's not too dark as well. So I
Yeah.
try to do as much true to color because again, people choose colors for a reason. They want to make sure that they have that color in there, but I just try to make sure that the environment's not overpowering or just being too loud in front of the
Yeah.
couple or whoever I'm photographing.
Yeah. Okay, if there was any person or any subject in the world who or that you could photograph, who or what would that be? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I would do Jackie Kennedy. I love Jackie Kennedy. I just think
Oh,
she's
that's a
so
great choice.
classy. I love the way that her outfits, her style. I think that would be really cool to take some photos of her. That would probably be mine.
I love that. Okay, so with respect to your business, I know that you said you are in the process of relocating to North Carolina.
I did. I just moved to the beach. I'm super excited.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's going to present
Yeah.
some great photography opportunities.
I already have one booked for this weekend. I have a proposal for this weekend at the beach, and I'm so excited for it. I can't wait. But yeah, so I'm relocating down here, and that's a bit of a challenge, just trying to figure out how do I move everything down here and what does that look like?
Yeah.
Especially since I had it with my community in Maryland. I was born and raised in Maryland, and so that was a really big part of my life. And so just kind of growing some roots down here. I want to get involved in a local church. I want to just continue to grow and meet coworkers and meet new friends. So hopefully by that, and then just keep staying on social media and having a good presence online too. I'm trying
Yeah.
to think too. I mean, it's definitely a vacation destination where I'm living now. And so, how do I gear my clientele more to people that are coming into the area for vacations
Yeah.
that might not necessarily live here, but want those beach shots and want those beach family portraits as well? How do I get my name out there as well so it pops up pretty high on Google or on Instagram or Facebook?
Yeah, I think so many people don't realize how important that component of a business is, especially when you're a small business or like you, oftentimes a one-woman machine. Getting your voice and your pictures and your name and your publicity out there on social media. So to that end, I want to make sure that everyone who's tuning into this and watching this knows where they can find out more about you because you do travel, right? You don't just stay within your community and do photography, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be coming back home to Maryland for a few times as well. I have some more weddings booked for this year, so I'll be in and out. I don't know why I thought it was a good idea to move in the middle of wedding season, but here I am doing it. So we're figuring it out. But I'll definitely be commuting back and forth. I'm happy to travel. I'm currently near the Crystal Coast of North Carolina, so it's the most southern tip of the Outer Banks. It's near Beaufort and Emerald Isle. It's beautiful down here, so I really would love to get more clientele down here as well.
That's fantastic. Okay, so let everybody know where they can find you on social media and find your website and look at your portfolio and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram is Hailey Rae Photos. I definitely have a lot of life as well on all my stories. You'll see all the beach pictures and everything. I try to keep it real as possible. And then my website is HaileyRaePhotography.com. And I think just Facebook is just Hailey Rae Photography as well.
Okay.
But those are Instagram and my website. My website has a contact form. It has my portfolio as well. Anything that people need should be on there as well. But that's basically it.
Awesome. And for everybody tuning in, we will obviously link to that in the show description, but it is HaileyRaePhotography.com. That's HaileyRae photography.com. Hailey, it was so great to see you. It's been a little bit too long, so we're going to have to make this a bit of a more regular thing. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break. I've got a little bit of news I want to wrap up with for this Saturday, and I'll see you on the other side of the All right, everybody. I know that we just celebrated the 4th of July, and it's kind of a long weekend for a lot of people. I think that a lot of folks took off Thursday, obviously, because it was the 4th of July, extremely justified, in my opinion. And then why come back to work for just one day on Friday? Why not just coast through the weekend? And I'll give you a little bit of a secret. We did some pre-taping for the TV show. That's exactly what we did as well. So I'm having a bit of a long weekend, but let's get into just a touch of politics. So that will carry us through so that we can, I don't know if you observe the Sabbath. I try to observe the Sabbath. I try to stay off of social media and things like that so that I can be fully present for church and being with my husband and, gathering with friends and all the things that are important to do to take a breather at least one day of the week. Anyway, but before we do that, let's get into some politics. So yes, the debate is still a conversation that is percolating out there in the news cycle, and it is not really a surprise because the devastating optics of Joe Biden's performance from that debate, the wake of that is still rippling across all of our news. And you are starting to see some folks who have been extremely, extremely staunch Biden supporters come out and say, well, maybe I was wrong. I mean, I can think of right now, I don't even want to say his name because I don't want to give him any publicity, but there are some prominent Democrat personalities over on X within the political sphere on X that I hang out in, and he has finally abandoned Joe Biden. And I just wonder if the checks from the DNC aren't have dried up or something. But at any rate, there are folks like Bill Maher out there saying that he supports an open convention for Democrats and that he would like to see Gavin Newsom be the nominee. I'm going to get into that in a moment. But here's the deal. We spoke to Mike Huckabee, former governor of Arkansas and presidential candidate Mike Huckabee, on the TV show. And Mike Huckabee laid out an interesting bit of information. As many of you know, there are these fundraising engines for the two major parties, for Republicans and Democrats. And the RNC and the DNC, they are the face of it, but obviously it has to run through effectively credit card processing companies like WinRed or ActBlue. At any rate, for people who have donated to the Biden-Harris ticket, that goes into the DNC coffers. And as of right now, I think the value of that cash on hand is roughly $200 million. That $200 million can only go to Kamala Harris. If it's not Joe Biden, obviously it goes to Joe Biden. But if Joe Biden is not the nominee, it can only go to Kamala Harris. Now, obviously, there's always a chance that Democrats can do something screwball and figure out a way around it. But typically speaking, and this would be the same thing for the RNC, if they had a declared candidate, if they had an incumbent in office, if they had someone who they had been fundraising off of, like, in the case of 4 years ago, Trump Pence, that money could have only gone to Donald Trump or Mike Pence. So I don't know how you muscle in somebody else at this point. And Gavin Newsom, really, of all the state governors who are Democrat, you want to take the guy who is the governor of a state who not only has been up for recall, he survived, but I'm not 100% sure that there, in fact, I know that there were shenanigans. Obviously, this is California. This is where shenanigans are birthed. But the guy barely survived a recall. This is the guy who runs a state that is so bad that so many people have left that there are 0 U-Haul trailers. It's that bad. Not only that, it's so bad that we've lost congressional seats because so many people have left California for greener pastures or redder states in this case. That's the guy that you want to plug in and you want to elbow out of the way the black woman? You, the party who so desperately values and clings to as many boxes as you can check off as possible. And you're just going to strike through the black box and strike through the woman box and say, forget it. We're going for a white man? Oh boy, I can't wait to see how that works out. Anyway, let's just say that there are a lot of folks who are on the inside who realize exactly what's happening. So I want to read to you guys an email that was leaked. This is from Hailey Sass. She is the Biden Victory Fund of Southern California, their finance director. So she sent out an email shortly after the debate, and she said, our team has received feedback from folks today, and I want to share a couple of highlights and resources to help navigate conversations you might be having. The choice in this election is as simple as this. Donald Trump will destroy our democracy. Joe Biden will defend it. This is the same race that it was before the debate, and post-debate polling shows that voters' opinions were not changed in any significant way. Girl, this was sent out the day after. Hailey, this is the day after. You haven't seen polling, okay? I'm yelling at my iPad like it's her. Anyway, she says this is the same race that it was before the debate, and post-debate polling shows that voters' opinions were not changed in any significant way. The race is going to be decided in individual battleground states in November 2024, just as it was in April of 2023. Now, Deadline is who got a hold of this email, and they they had some interesting things to say about it. They said it was almost like the debate free fall never happened, and the likes of the New York Times editorial board isn't pleading with the president to drop out for the good of the nation. Therefore, the money train to Biden's campaign could be coming to a halt or at least a pause unless the campaign has either a come to Joe moment or a radical reset. One political insider said there's going to be a pause at the very least. How long it lasts depends on how bad it gets. And if the campaign takes real action, we can't have a repeat of last night. He was speaking of fundraising. And look, if you don't have the fundraising, if you don't have the money there, it doesn't matter if it's large donors or small dollar donations. It doesn't matter as long as you got the money, as long as you got that cash flowing through your campaign, you are still viable. 9 times out of 10 in a Democrat or a Republican primary, when you have a pool of candidates, when the money dries up, that's when they bow out. It's not when their heart is telling them that it's time to bow out. Hint, hint. Here's a little insider secret. People aren't following their heart. They're following their pride. And when the money runs out, the pride has to follow. So I don't know what the future is of Joe Biden's campaign. I continue to contend that Joe Biden will be the nominee. I think that it is, as I've said, there isn't a mechanism in place to replace Joe Biden at this point. I think that Democrats will fall prey to the sunk cost fallacy that they have put so much money and so many resources and so much time into this campaign, into this candidate, into this presidency and this administration, selling the policies as bad as they are, that to pull him and drop in someone else is just not, it's untenable. So I do think that Joe Biden will be the nominee. We won't find out till the DNC. But boy, it is going to be a crazy summer. Y'all better buckle up, pray, take care of your family, make sure you have stored goods in your homes. Look, I have a natural inclination towards doomsday prepping, so I have to kind of chill myself sometimes when I go online and I start buying buckets and buckets of 30-year food and things like that. But it's not a bad idea. It's just never, and look, I don't have any products to sell you regarding that. I don't care what company it is. I don't know which one is the best. All I know is that when it comes to taking care of your family, you just got to take care of what's happening at home, and what happens in Washington, D.C. is going to happen. And other than voting and praying and being active in your community and talking to your family and friends about the election, talking about the issues, registering voters if you can. Other than that, we just gotta, you know what? We gotta wake up. We gotta make up our bed in the morning. We have to prepare, provide for our families and things like that. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you all had a fantastic 4th of July, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. And I will see you on Monday for the audio only podcast, which comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Furthermore, with Amanda Head, available on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and justthenews.com. Have a blessed weekend. See you then.